In a world dominated by instant gratification, where vibes and feelings reign supreme, an ancient philosophy stands in stark contrast, offering us timeless wisdom that challenges our modern sensibilities. Welcome to our exploration of Stoicism versus modern trends, why discipline matters more than vibes. Imagine scrolling through your social media feed. Good vibes only. Follow your feelings. If it doesn't spark joy, let it go. These phrases have become the mantras of our time, seductive in their simplicity, promising a path to happiness through the pursuit of positive emotions and the avoidance of discomfort. But what if this approach is fundamentally flawed? What if our ancestors understood something about human flourishing that we've forgotten in our pursuit of momentary pleasures? Stoicism emerged in Athens around 300 BCE, founded by Zeno of Citium, but it was later Roman Stoics like Seneca, Epictetus, and Emperor Marcus Aurelius who developed it into the robust philosophy we recognize today. At its core, Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or enduring hardship with a stiff upper lip, common misconceptions that have distorted its meaning. Rather, it offers a sophisticated framework for living well through self-discipline, rational thinking, and virtue. The Stoics understood something profound, that true fulfillment doesn't come from chasing pleasant feelings or avoiding unpleasant ones. Instead, it emerges from developing inner strength, maintaining equanimity in the face of life's inevitable challenges, and focusing on what lies within our control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, a personal journal never intended for publication, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This ancient wisdom stands in stark contrast to many contemporary trends that emphasize feeling good over being good, immediate satisfaction over long-term growth, and self-expression over self-mastery. Today's vibe-centered culture often suggests that if something feels difficult or uncomfortable, it might not be right for you. A notion that would have bewildered the Stoics, who recognized that valuable growth often occurs precisely when we push through resistance and discomfort. Consider how we approach challenges today. When faced with difficulty, many modern self-help approaches suggest changing our external circumstances to match our desired emotional state. Feeling unmotivated about exercise? Maybe it's not your thing. Finding your work difficult? Perhaps you haven't found your passion. While there's value in aligning our lives with our authentic interests, this approach can become problematic when taken to extremes, creating a generation that struggles with commitment and resilience when the initial excitement of any endeavor inevitably fades. The Stoics would offer a radically different perspective. They would suggest that the problem isn't the challenge itself, but our judgment about it. They would remind us that discomfort is not harm, that temporary struggle builds lasting character, and that discipline, doing what needs to be done regardless of how we feel about it, is the foundation of a life well lived. But let's be clear, Stoicism isn't about glorifying suffering or denying the importance of emotions. It's about developing the wisdom to distinguish between what we can and cannot control, the courage to change what we can, and the serenity to accept what we cannot. It's about recognizing that while we can't always control how we feel, we can control how we respond to those feelings. As we navigate a world increasingly dominated by algorithms designed to hijack our attention and emotions, where instant gratification is just a click away, and where following your bliss has become commercialized dogma, perhaps there's profound value in revisiting this ancient philosophy. Perhaps discipline, the ability to do what is right rather than what feels good in the moment, is exactly what we need to cultivate in an age of distraction and emotional reactivity. In the blocks that follow, we'll explore specific Stoic principles and practices that can help us develop this discipline, examine how they contrast with popular contemporary approaches to well-being, and consider how we might integrate the best of both worlds. We'll look at practical applications of Stoic wisdom in modern life, from managing digital distractions to building meaningful relationships, from approaching work with purpose to facing adversity with resilience. The question before us is not whether we should abandon all modern insights about happiness and well-being, but whether we've lost something essential in our cultural shift toward prioritizing feelings over actions, comfort over growth, and self-expression over self-mastery. Perhaps, as we'll discover, the path to a truly fulfilling life lies not in chasing good vibes, but in cultivating the discipline to live according to deeper values, even when, especially when, doing so isn't easy. As we leave behind our introduction to the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, let's delve deeper into its foundational principles, timeless insights that offer a compelling alternative to our vibe-centric culture. What exactly did the Stoics teach, and why might these teachings be more relevant now than ever? At the heart of Stoic philosophy lies a radical idea that virtue, excellence of character, is the only true good, not pleasure, not wealth, not fame or power. For the Stoics, a good life isn't measured by how much pleasure you experience or how many possessions you accumulate, but by how virtuously you live. This stands in stark contrast to our modern obsession with positive emotions and external markers of success. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, expressed this foundational principle succinctly. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. This brings us to perhaps the most practical Stoic teaching, the dichotomy of control. The Stoics recognize that much of our suffering comes from trying to control things beyond our influence. They divided all things into two categories, those within our control and those beyond it. Within our control are our judgments, our values, our responses, and our actions. Beyond our control are external events, other people's opinions, our reputation, wealth, and even our health. Consider how revolutionary this perspective is in our current cultural landscape. Social media constantly bombards us with carefully curated images of perfect lives, triggering comparison and anxiety. Marketing messages suggest that happiness lies in the next purchase. Self-help gurus promise techniques to manifest anything we desire. All of these modern trends reinforce the illusion that we should be able to control our external circumstances to match our desires. The Stoics would call this a recipe for misery. When we invest our sense of well-being in things we cannot control, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. Instead, they would advise us to focus our energy on what we can control, primarily our own thoughts and actions, while accepting with equanimity what we cannot. Imagine receiving a critical comment on something you've shared online. The modern vibes approach might suggest blocking the negativity, seeking validation from supporters, or changing what you share to avoid criticism. The Stoic approach would be radically different. Examine whether there's any truth in the criticism that could help you improve. Recognize that others' opinions are beyond your control and continue to act according to your values regardless of external validation. Another core Stoic principle is the practice of negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Rather than focusing exclusively on positive thinking, Stoics regularly contemplated worst-case scenarios, not to induce anxiety, but to reduce it by mentally preparing for difficulties, appreciating what they currently have, and removing the shock of unexpected setbacks. Seneca, a wealthy Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher, regularly practiced voluntary discomfort, occasionally dressing in poor clothes, eating simple food or sleeping on a hard mat, not as punishment but as training. Set aside a certain number of days, he wrote, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with rough and coarse clothing, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This deliberate practice of discomfort stands in stark opposition to our culture's emphasis on convenience and comfort at all costs. Today's self-care movement, while valuable in many ways, sometimes veers into self-indulgence, suggesting that any discomfort is to be avoided rather than potentially embraced as an opportunity for growth. The Stoics also emphasize the importance of cosmopolitanism, seeing oneself as part of a larger human community with shared interests and dignity. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome at its height, wrote, "We were born to work together, like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower." This perspective naturally led to an emphasis on justice and service to others, not merely as moral obligations, but as expressions of our rational nature. In our increasingly polarized world, where tribal identities often override our common humanity, this Stoic emphasis on our fundamental interconnectedness offers a powerful corrective. It reminds us that discipline isn't just about personal achievement, but about fulfilling our responsibilities to the larger community of which we're a part. Perhaps most importantly, Stoicism teaches us to find meaning in the process rather than just the outcome. In a culture obsessed with results, metrics, and visible success, the Stoics remind us that virtue lies in the quality of our efforts, not in whether those efforts yield the results we desire. As Epictetus put it, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. These principles, focusing on what we can control, preparing for difficulties, practicing voluntary discomfort, recognizing our interconnectedness, and finding meaning in the process, form the backbone of Stoic practice. They offer a coherent alternative to the follow your feelings ethos of contemporary culture. But how might we actually apply these principles in our daily lives? How can ancient Stoic disciplines help us navigate the unique challenges of the digital age? In our next segment, we'll explore specific Stoic practices and how they can be adapted to address modern challenges, from digital distraction to consumer culture, from career uncertainty to relationship difficulties. We'll examine how disciplined thinking can free us from the tyranny of fleeting emotions and external validation, allowing us to build lives of deeper meaning and authentic joy. Having explored the foundational principles of Stoicism, we now stand at the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern life. How can we translate these timeless concepts into practical tools for navigating today's unique challenges? Let's bridge the theoretical with the practical, exploring specific Stoic exercises that can help us cultivate discipline in an age that often prioritizes vibes over virtue. The Stoics weren't merely philosophers in the abstract sense. They were pragmatists who developed concrete practices for living according to their principles. Perhaps their most fundamental practice was the discipline of assent, the careful examination of our automatic impressions before accepting them as true. In today's terms, we might call this mindfulness or metacognition. Consider how this applies to our digital lives. When we receive a notification, our immediate impression might be, "I need to check this now." The discipline of assent invites us to pause and question this impression. Is this truly urgent? What value will come from interrupting my current focus? What would happen if I waited? Similarly, when scrolling through social media, we might feel the impression everyone else is happier, more successful, more fulfilled than I am. The Stoic would pause to examine this impression. Is this actually true? Am I seeing a complete picture of these people's lives? Would external markers of success necessarily make me more virtuous or content? This discipline of questioning our impressions is particularly powerful in combating the FOMO, fear of missing out, that drives so much of our digital behavior. By applying Stoic reasoning, we can recognize that what we're often missing out on isn't aligned with our deeper values anyway. Another powerful Stoic practice is the morning preparation. Seneca advised beginning each day by anticipating potential challenges and preparing our responses to them. Today, I may encounter people who are ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, envious, or antisocial, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. They are this way because they don't know better. Imagine starting your day not by immediately checking social media, but by mentally rehearsing how you'll respond to difficulties, the critical email you might receive, the traffic that might delay you, the temptation to procrastinate on important work. This preparation doesn't guarantee these challenges won't arise, but it ensures they won't catch you off guard. The Stoics also practice regular self-examination. At day's end, Seneca would review his actions, asking himself, "What bad habit have I cured today? What vice have I resisted? In what respect am I better?" This evening reflection creates accountability to ourselves and allows us to track our progress in developing virtue. In our metrics-obsessed culture, this qualitative self-assessment offers a refreshing alternative. Rather than counting likes, followers, or even productivity metrics, we evaluate ourselves by our adherence to our principles. Did I speak truthfully today? Did I treat others justly? Did I display courage when faced with difficulty? Perhaps the most countercultural Stoic practice is the deliberate limitation of desires. Epictetus advised, "Begin with things of little value. If you like a particular cup, remind yourself it is just a cup and may break. If you cherish someone, remember they are mortal." This isn't pessimism, but preparation, and a recognition that attachment to externals leaves us vulnerable. In our consumer society, where marketing constantly creates new desires and social media showcases ever more extravagant lifestyles, this limitation of desire is revolutionary. It suggests that the path to contentment isn't through acquiring more, but through wanting less, finding satisfaction in what's already sufficient. The Stoics also emphasize physical discipline, not just for health or appearance, but as training for the mind. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher, argued that enduring physical discomfort strengthens our capacity to maintain virtue under pressure. This principle translates perfectly to our comfort-obsessed era. When we choose to run in the rain, take cold showers, or fast occasionally, we're not just building physical resilience. We're training our minds to withstand discomfort without immediately seeking escape. This capacity becomes crucial when facing moral challenges that require us to choose principle over convenience. Finally, the Stoics practice perspective-taking through cosmic contemplation. Marcus Aurelius regularly reminded himself of his place in the vast universe and the brief span of human life. This practice doesn't diminish the importance of our actions, but places them in proper context, helping us distinguish between what merely feels important and what truly matters. When we're caught up in workplace drama, social media controversies, or status anxiety, this cosmic perspective reminds us that much of what consumes our attention is, in the grand scheme, trivially small. This realization frees us to focus on what the Stoics considered truly significant, acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. These Stoic practices, examining our impressions, preparing for challenges, reflecting on our actions, limiting desires, embracing physical discipline, and maintaining perspective, provide a comprehensive toolkit for navigating modern life with intention rather than being swept along by fleeting emotions or external pressures. But how does this Stoic approach compare to the vibe-based philosophy that dominates much of contemporary culture? What are we gaining, and what might we be losing when we choose discipline over desire, principle over feeling? In our next segment, we'll directly compare these contrasting approaches to life and examine what's at stake in choosing between them.